Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And yes, we are lucky enough to have him back, Mr. Millennial Mike. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
It still amazes me that you're willing to do this section, right? You're willing to go through, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of comments on my videos from the week. Pick out interesting ones, pick out spicy ones, pick out hater ones, and ask me about them. I find this a lot of fun because I don't know all the questions. I do take one or two and send them through the week, but I like reacting cold. So thank you for doing this. I know it takes time. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, yeah, so that is the whole point of this video that we do once a week, is that so if you have a question or if you're pissed off about something that Mike said, you disagree with him, as some of the people, believe it or not, do. And some of them have interesting takes and opinions. This is your chance to be heard. So if you want your question featured, leave it down in the comments section. Make it good enough that I can see it and want to add it, or send me a message on Instagram. Somehow, some way, communicate with me so that I can find your question and put it here so we can talk about it. So what we're going to talk about first, believe it or not, I know this is a surprise to you, but people are still concerned about a crash or recession coming. So that's what we're going to talk about, a recession, to be or not to be? That is the question. So Chicky Boosin, YouTube user Chicky Boosin says, and this is actually a good question, because you've been talking about how definitionally this may not technically be a recession because we didn't have a loss of employment. So Chicky Boosin says, what happens if we're not in an official recession? Do you think that changes the Fed's behavior, or maybe is it only important for elections only?
Yeah, so there's really kind of two kind of subtle questions in there. One is I actually do think it not being called an official recession, Q1, meaning Q1, Q2. This is all assuming that Q2 GDP is negative, which again, the Fed, Atlanta Fed forecast says it is. I think it won't be. I think it'll be just slightly positive, but let's just assume Atlanta's right and we have two negative quarters. I actually do think it's important that it's not classified as a recession, technically, a la 1947. And the Fed will take that. Again, it's all about employment, right? 2.6, 2.5 million jobs created in 6 months. I don't think there's any chance in hell it's called a recession. And basically, it's permission for the Fed to step on the gas. The Fed, frankly, needs to break something. And as soon as we have a real recession, they have to slow down at a minimum and probably have to stop, if not full out reverse. Again, I want to say that if a real recession happens, the Fed will at a minimum slow down, probably stop, and may cut. So yes, I do believe it's very important if this is classified as a recession or not. Second, is there some kind of conspiracy theory, like there's 50 people out there pulling the strings to make some kind of, I mean, the November elections are 4 months away. 4 months away.
Yeah, midterms are coming.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conspiracy theory. There's always assumptions that the politicians cook the data. I've actually met some of these people I sold to the government for over a decade. They're not, these people that play with these numbers in huge databases, they're not political. And even if they were, there's so many layers before the data comes out. It's just, is the data bad? You can argue that. But I don't think it's politically skewed. And again, we've had Trump was in office for 4 years. Were you guys thinking the data was bad then? Or is it only when there's, I mean, this is why left and right, red and blue drives me crazy. I try to live in the middle. But no, I don't think there's any political motivation to call it a recession or not. Frankly, it doesn't matter. We are pissed off. We are scared. It is very obvious that the people who are going to vote, people vote when they're mad.
Yeah.
And they're mad. And it doesn't, no human being on any voting, over 18 cares if it's a recession or not. If they feel bad and they're pissed off or scared, they're voting. So who is ever running for re-election in November, red or blue, left or right, your job's at risk because you should probably be voted out of office. I mean, it typically happens. The incumbent doesn't do well when the population is scared, and we're scared and pissed off. So, but I don't think calling it a recession or not has any impact. I think consumer sentiment, which comes out Friday, is a far better indicator. You or I don't care if there's a recession. you know, we still have our jobs, we're still doing this or that, but we care that it takes $140 to fill up my car, not my truck, my car.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So yeah, so that's what I think about that one.
Okay. Well, a little follow-up question then. So if it is called a recession,
yep.
And you would say that maybe the Fed starts to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
But how long did it take for the Fed to break the back of inflation in the 70s? I mean, we've only been raising rates for 6 months. I mean, it took a long time to dig out of the hole they had. You really think that even if it's called a recession, that they won't stay the course? You think they'll cave to political pressure or something?
Well, again, if it's called a recession, again, Q1, Q2 negative, and then they see Q3 falling off a cliff as well, they're going to have to slow down. Because again, their job is dual mandate, right? Stable prices and full employment. And what will happen is a recession is unemployment will start jumping. So in this world, if it's called a recession and unemployment, you know, is 3.6 as of Friday, if it jumped to 4.6 in like a month, 5.6 in a couple months, they would see those as cracks and have to slow down. I don't think they pivot because they really haven't done anything. I mean, I know it's hard to say that when the market's down 20% and crypto's 80%.
Oh.
They haven't done squat. They've raised it 1.5 points. Yeah. They gotta get it to 3. They got to get it to 3.5, maybe 4. There are some people calling 5 or 6. So again, I do think it's important. I think raising into an official recession has to give them pause. Certainly slow down. I don't see a cut. I mean, and that's why I don't think Q1. I just can't. Again, I studied economics. We went into the details. This rule of thumb about 2 negative quarters is just that, a rule of thumb. It's worked every year since 1947. So it's a rule of thumb that works.
Right.
I just don't see it happening. And I hope this all goes away and we get a 0.1, 0.2 positive Q2. And then it's not an argument, but boy, if Q2 is negative 1, 1.5, I can just imagine the noise around it. Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So, and again, some of these YouTube usernames are not easy for me to pronounce, but I'm going to do my best. So Tuan Chow Wind says, everyone says, don't buy with home values still dropping, but I'm seeking cheap $120,000 properties. So does it matter?
So, if you follow what I talk about, the price point doesn't really matter to me. In fact, I can tell you, I've seen more people go broke buying cheap because they don't understand why it's cheap. So I will say again to this user and to anybody following this, to me, it has always been and is always will be about yield of that asset. The first thing you need to do, again, price point means almost nothing to me. Almost nothing is to go out and figure what the average yield is. Let's say your average yield is 6%. And again, you can get a 6% yield in a cheap asset or a more expensive one, just based on rent, expenses, price point, debt structure, all that. Your job is to go in this environment, go earn 8, 9, or 10 if average is 6. So frankly, I don't look at price points. I would tell you again, last year, if you heard my videos, it was good or great. I believe we're heading into a new environment. Throw good out the window. We're only doing great. You and I have no idea where or how long this thing's going to go. So make sure every other deal is better than the one before. So my caution to this is, dude, I don't look at price point. Price point's almost irrelevant.
Okay. All right. Well, next question, still on the topic of falling prices, recession, capital Z space capital O, Zoe says, and this is an interesting, this is an interesting comment. Okay. Their comment is, I respectfully disagree. This will be the worst financial crash planet Earth has ever seen. Homes will be for sale for a couple of ounces of gold. Winter is coming.
First off, I hope he's right.
Right, no kidding.
I would love nothing better than to buy houses for $4,000, $5,000, whatever an ounce of gold is. That would be amazing. Again, hey, if my words matter to the universe, I would love that. I would love that statement to be true. Loving it to be true and believing it has any merit at all are vastly different statements. I don't see it. I lived through the Great Recession. I lived through the dot-com crisis. I think what we're entering is kind of a combination of both. So it's going to be kind of a combination of both. It's certainly not going to be fun. But again, I've studied the Great Depression. That was one of our topics in college. And to say that what we're about to go through is going to have, I think it was 25% unemployment, breadlines. It's just not practical, right? There's a lot more safety nets. If the universe is listening, I would love to buy houses for 2 ounces of gold. I'm down for that. Give me some. I actually got some that I would deploy. And, but I don't see it happening. This is going to be bad. This will see some records set. I think this will be the worst crash in real estate transactions on record. I do see some records set, but no, this is not going to be the worst. At least I don't see it. I don't see it.
In the history of the world, Mike, in the history of the world, the worst. We'll see. I guess time will tell. In response to you talking about supply versus demand, keeping housing prices from crashing, the user C-Dub says, is this guy seriously hanging his hat on inventory levels from 2019 to now? You shot yourself in the foot, man. Highest gain in inventory year to year since 2008. Try using logic next time.
Nick fans.
I know, right?
So let me educate you about the law of small numbers. So what if I told you foreclosures are going up 10,000%? This individual
sounds terrible. Sounds very scary.
Dude, sounds horrible. But then what if I told you it was illegal to have foreclosures for 2 years? So the base is nothing. So anybody who's looking at percentages and doesn't understand I've been very clear. I think what we're about to go through is a buyer revolt. They're going to run away, and seller FOMO. It's going to be a horrible combination. And if you think inventories have gone up already, dude, and I said this morning on the Daily Financial News, wait for these crash idiots to talk about, because I think inventories can double from here. Mm-hmm. Wait until they start talking about, oh my God, now we have 2 months of, dude, Vegas went up 150% this month and 137% next month. The world is ending. Right. Oh my God, it's going to be so loud. And then lo and behold, 60 days later, 30% of the inventory falls off because it was wish pricing and it was want to sell, not need to sell. We are going to have such a noisy market. There's going to be so much negativity in the market after July 20th. I can already see these idiots claiming victory. And it's because they don't know how housing works. Housing is a transaction. A transaction is an agreed buyer and agreed seller. We are going to go into a world where the sellers want yesterday and the buyers want tomorrow. And you have lack of liquidity in the middle. No transactions are coming. It's going to be greatly reduced, just like I keep telling you. And we are not going to know about the housing market in any the health of the housing market, because the data will be so messy until Q1 of next year. Nick fans, I God love them.
One of the things that it just doesn't make sense to me is it's like, okay, most people know that what's considered a healthy housing market is 6 months supply, 6 months of supply of houses on the market. Well, if in most markets across the country for the last couple of years, we've been operating at 2 months supply, you realize we can triple that and just get to what's definitionally considered healthy. How much further do you have to go before you would actually get to unhealthy? I mean, you would have to 6 or 7x the supply.
So let me give you one really interesting fact. I reported this, I think it was Wednesday. It might've been Thursday. So first off, this is all from memory, so I might be off. I think there's 917 real estate kind of areas in the country, right? Little micro sub 917. 601 of those 917 are 50% below 2019. So yes, Vegas is crazy. Phoenix is crazy. Other Texas crazy. But 601 are 50% below 2019 levels. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Stop watching Nick. Nick's not helping.
Right. No, I agree. Okay. So speaking of Nick and on Reventure Consulting, glad that we segued into there wonderfully. The YouTube user Phenomenal, spelled in an interesting way, says he was a year late, but it looks like it's happening now. Look at Vegas for a sample of things to come to 80% of the nation's housing market. So Mike, yeah, sure, 601 of these other companies, or excuse me, other real estate markets are still below 2019 levels, but Vegas is the canary in the coal mine. What happens there is definitely 100% without question gonna happen everywhere else too.
Well, lots of people like Nick in this Phenomenal believe that. I unfortunately have 20 years of experience studying markets like Vegas. I have told you for well over a year that Vegas is my canary in the coal mine. I've had Brian Lebo on my show a dozen, maybe 20 times going, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Because Vegas is the canary in the coal mine. But let me just tell you right here, right now, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I mean,
Nice.
Have you guys not heard that before? Vegas goes up wildly and it goes down wildly. But again, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Do you think what happens in Las Vegas, Nevada is going to happen in Nashville, Tennessee, Miami, Florida, Raleigh, North Carolina? Are you freaking kidding? Do you have have you watched anything other than Nick? I mean, geez, no. Vegas has some interesting traits. Again, I've said it. I did a video with Brian where I called it "The Party's Over, the Canary's Dead." It does show you when the peak for the country, like peak insanity happens. But if Vegas goes down 30%, does that mean the country goes down 30%? Not a chance. Vegas is a service-based economy that has a lot of external migration with Californians, as Brian says, walking over with bags full of gold. And it's artificial. And oh, by the way, the worst part about the Vegas economy is they have built the wrong inventory. They have focused on inventory between 750 grand and 1.5. They have not focused on affordable housing. So if you're a landlord in Vegas at affordable housing, which is 350 grand or below, you're going to be fine. If you were an idiot that bought a $1 million home in a desert, like every other track home, you're probably going to be hurt. But no, Vegas is not a signal that the world is ending, and Nick is right.
I'll give you something interesting to think about here. I made a video recently about what actually happens to rental prices during a recession. A lot of people are hoping, hey, if a recession comes, maybe I can get a better deal for my landlord. And you'll come to find that, unfortunately, even if you go as far back as 1905, there has never been a 5-year period where rental prices went down. In my video, I broke down the last 3 recessions over the last 22 years. And even during the Great Recession, rental prices as a national average and a national median never went down. The only exception where prices do come down were in luxury markets. So for example, places like Manhattan, 10% rental price decreases during the Great Recession. Well, Las Vegas is not a major port city. The reason that there's this giant city in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't have anything that provides except for luxury living lifestyle. So yes, it makes sense for during a recession, even the rich and famous pull their belts a little bit tighter. People can't go out there and spend as much money, but that does not equate to a crash in every other major city, which provides more than just luxury living and pumping money into stupid slot machines so that you can lose it.
Yeah.
Does not equate a nationwide crash, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and again, people need to remember, I would love nothing more than to have a second bite of the apple in Fresno go down 75%. I just don't see it.
Okay, this one's not really a question, but Julius Hawkins wanted you to know that these videos are getting funny. He wants you, Michael Zuber, to believe him over everyone else. So, yeah.
Okay.
Kevin Acundo says about the Fed, if they pivot early, or if they pivot to early inflation, okay, hold on. If they pivot to early inflation, it'll just come roaring right back. Look at the 70s and the early 80s. It took dang near a decade to finally beat inflation. Inflation's not going anywhere anytime soon, especially if they pivot too early. That's kind of the point that I made earlier.
No, and I agreed with your point earlier, and I agree with this comment. And there's 2 things that I believe about Powell. One is, rightly or wrongly, he has chosen to communicate to Wall Street what is coming. I hate that strategy, but my opinion doesn't matter. He's telling Wall Street what's coming, so Wall Street has an orderly step down. Again, I would love him to kick him in the nuts, rip the Band-Aid off, and just see where the pieces fall. Not his strategy. Totally okay. The second thing, without question, Powell is a student of history. Powell has undoubtedly studied the mistakes of the 70s more than probably any human other than a couple of PhD students alive. He will not pivot early. Just based on comments and whatnot that he's made over the last 6 or 9 months, I'm like, okay, he gets it. He's not going. You are going to have to take that out of his hands. So I think this. I forget his name already. This commenter or viewer is right. I do not see Powell relenting. In fact, I have said many times, I think Powell is going to go until he really breaks something.
Yeah. Well, and I think he doesn't want to have his legacy be that he didn't have the backbone to do what needed to be done, because eventually let's get somebody in there who will. So he may as well do it.
Yeah. Arthur Burns before Paul Volcker is the people to go look at. Yep.
Okay. So interesting question here from Chris Webb. He told you first, great video, but he asks, so what does rent decreases in apartments mean for housing?
That's an interesting question. I've been doing more and more research because, again, I love this channel. I get to meet more and more investors, many of them much, much, much bigger than I. And I really have come to believe that apartments got ahead of themselves in lots of cities. So I think apartment rents are going to be flat to down. Probably A and B for sure, maybe C. But I don't think housing, right? I think, and when I say housing, I mean single family housing to make it clear. I think the single family home, especially the affordable single family home, is the unicorn of the decade. There's just not enough of them. It's not profitable to build them. We lose some every year to fire and floods and all of these things, and they're just not coming back. So I think single family homes are going to get more love and attention and probably higher rents. I hope not. I don't want to see 20% rent increase in houses. That's unhealthy. I've lived in a home that was rent insecure and packed up all my goods a couple of times because we had to leave because so-and-so was coming to kick us out. And I don't wish that on anyone. But I just see people wanting to live in a single family home. I think the last 2 years have taught us, I hate small spaces. I hate having neighbors. I want my own stuff. So the single family affordable rental is rare. I think rents go up in houses.
Yeah. It's just supply and demand as always. More people would love to live in houses versus apartments. And if that's the case, and there's a fixed number of houses, inevitably price just has to go up.
Yeah. And let's play this out in a recession, right? The other thing I'm starting to see more and more of is roommates, or what I call multi-generational living, right? Mom and kids, grandma, maybe 2, maybe 3 generations. Let me ask you this question. Let's assume there are 4 adults and 2 kids in a home. Do you really want to try to squash that into a 2-bedroom apartment? Or do you want to step up for a little bit more money and get a 3-bedroom house?
Right.
If you're going to do multi-generational living, which I think is going to happen more and more, believe me, you're going to want to be in a house. Get those kids in the backyard. Grandma's got to sleep or whatever. So.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, during one of your live streams, I think this was yesterday, I was watching it. During your live stream, one of your viewers, he expressed like his total frustration and loss of hope with buying a home. And you even responded to him, I think like twice during the live stream. And his complaints, he's just being outcompeted, he's outbid, he's hopeless. What's your advice to him, or your longer response for him?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, right? I'm glad you brought this up because that, again, I have to react in real time, right, on these live streams. And there's really a couple of things I hope people take from this. If you've really given up hope, or you're grinding into negativity and you think the world's against you or this or that, the first thing, you've got to pull yourself out of that. Nobody else can. I tried to offer some advice like, hey, instead of looking at this as a negative, why don't you flip the coin over and see this as an amazing gift? Oh, by the way, you didn't buy a home last year? Good. You didn't have to do stupid things like overpay, waive conditions, blah, 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 blah. Flip the coin over, make it a positive. The space between your ears is the most expensive real estate on the freaking planet. And if you allow yourself to grind in negativity and soup and if you allow that, that's on you. So I tried to offer advice like, hey, look up, here's, make it a positive, do all of these things. But it's really on you. A lot of life is on you.
Yeah.
And I hope I offered words of encouragement. I hope I helped him. personally, but I hope more people saw that. In anytime I'm in a bad space, I own that, right? I've lost thousands of deals. I've lost hundreds of deal of the decades, right? That's okay. Just there'll be another one, right? Flip the coin over. Don't look at the bad, look at the good. So, and then I think he said later that, we were talking about creative financing or whatnot. It's like, I have cash to buy. Well, here's the deal. If you really are in a dark space because you haven't bought something, if you want to buy, here's a hint: overpay and you can own something. I'm going to guess you're not going to look at that as a win, though, because in a couple of months, it's going to be buyer regret and all of these things. So again, own where you are, flip the coin over, look at it as a gift. You have been given a gift to not buy in the stupidest seller's market I have ever seen. It's a gift. Own it. Thank the world. Thank the universe. And just keep doing the work. Yeah. Hopefully that came through.
Yeah, if I was going to add on to this, a lot of people would immediately say, well, Mike, it's easy for you to say, you started a long time ago, things were different, you had it better, blah, blah, blah. Little do they know that the same problems we talk about now happened then and happen always. I bought my first rental 4 years ago. At that time, Seattle, where I live, where I purchased, Seattle was the #1 appreciating market 24 months in a row. One of the hottest, nationwide, one of the hottest real estate markets that you can possibly purchase in. At Bellevue, Washington, just a few miles from Seattle, the average price of a home is over $1 million. Seattle's $900,000. It's unbelievably expensive. There's a lot to be frustrated about, to get down about. And I understand sometimes you look at the situation you find yourself in and it's not fun. It is challenging. It's difficult. It isn't easy. It doesn't make you feel good. And then when you go out there and you make bids on houses and you make bids and you get outcompeted and outbid, and it can be very demoralizing. It does not feel good. But here's what you have to do. Every single day, you have to get up and you have to keep trying, because the alternative is that you quit. And unless you want to sit here and type out on YouTube, I quit, I can't do it, I give up, I will rent forever. If that's what you want to do, okay, go ahead, type it into the keyboard and do it. But if you're just going to complain, if you're just going to throw a fit about it, if you're just going to say that it's too hard, you don't have the means, the ability, or the opportunity, that's a lie. You have everything you need to be successful. Yes, you have unique challenges that maybe other people didn't have. Maybe it's different than your parents or your friends or your family, but you still have an opportunity that people quite literally in other parts of the planet will die to try to get here to have for themselves. I mean, every single week we hear stories of people dying to cross our border, to brave criminals and gangs and starvation and dying from heat exhaustion and heat exposure just to get here to have the same opportunity that you were born with. You were born with, and you have it here. So seize that moment, take that opportunity to actually do something. I understand complaining can just be a form of venting. I get it. But at the end of the day, you cannot lose hope and just sit here and be that pissed off about it, right? If you're going to be angry, turn that emotion into motivation and do something productive, because we don't want to hear it. Mike was in a crappy situation. So was I. So was the Lumberjack. So was Dion. If you watch the channel, you've heard the stories. Stop making excuses. It's embarrassing. All right. I'll finish off with a couple of the questions here. Okay. Miriam Hussein says, why don't you ever talk about DC and Northern Virginia real estate?
Yeah, I get questions like that a lot. So obviously I'm a West Coast guy, been out here for 50 years or so. And I have a decent network, but it's definitely skewed West Coast to this viewer's comments. I would love to get knowledgeable experts. I do, I have pretty high standards before I let somebody on my channel. But hey, if you have experts that are hot in other areas, I'd love to talk to them. Again, I'm an open book, right? When you create 6, 7, 8 videos a day, you'll talk to anybody. But I just don't want any Joe Schmo. If you got data on people in DC or Raleigh and they're willing to have a deep, dark, conversation about what's really going on, I would talk about any market. I love this stuff. My experience, history, the blocking and tackling in the market. I could talk about any market. I could ask decent questions. So it's not lack of trying. It's lack of personal network, frankly.
Yeah. And so that being said, one of the reasons why you don't talk about every other market is because if you don't know, you shouldn't just sit out here and try to present yourself as an expert just for the sole, a goal of trying to get more views. That sounds a little bit like, well, somebody that we both know and love.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about a city that I don't know that's really large by looking at one graph. That's not going to be me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So Pat Tui asked a question about the course and a couple of other questions. So he goes, look, I've been listening to your podcasts. I've been plugged into your websites and courses. I've bought 2 long-term rentals that are cash netting $1,000 a month a piece, which sound like pretty good deals. Good for you.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
He says, I have the cash to buy number 3 and number 4, but I'm priced out of my local market. I'm looking 30 to 60 minutes away and the numbers still don't work. What do I do?
Yeah. So this is kind of, this is a good question because you were in this situation for a while, right? So
yeah.
There's a couple of things that I say on this. First and foremost, I generally feel once you've learned a market, I would turn over other assets. So for example, the Lumberjack talks about this a lot. Actually, Dion too, right? They started learning their markets in houses, single family homes. Both of them in their markets, their deals produced negative cash flow, but they learned that market. Then both of them, one's on the East Coast, New Hampshire, one's in Washington, moved to duplexes through quads, so 2 through 4s. Now those did cash flow, right? So they took the experience, the network, the relationships, the handyman, all of that, and just flipped the asset. Since then, the Lumberjack specifically has gone to what I did with small commercial, right? Call it 5 to 20, 25 units. Again, I would challenge you, if you know a market and it's really based on you, right? What do you want? Because if you want to self-manage, you're kind of constrained location-wise. If you're comfortable letting go of that, or frankly, don't want to do that, like my case, you can go other areas. For me, I happen to have the crazy thing of I didn't want to get on an airplane to see my stuff. So I had to go, where can I drive to? I drive 2.5 hours one way to see my stuff. So it's a 5-hour day before I do anything. It's a long day. You, on the other hand, chose to go, I don't know, 5, 6 states away.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of summarizing, I wouldn't be in a rush to give up my market if there were reasons why I wanted to stay there. I would challenge myself to tweak the asset type. 2, if you're comfortable letting go, I think you can answer that better when you go out of state. Not something I've done, but again, my market's 2.5 hours away. You can get to a lot of places in 2.5 hours. So that's what I chose to do.
If you're self-managing, it probably is very hard for you to conceptualize giving up so much control. However, if you're already using a property manager, I think that you would find, especially with the invention of telephones and email and text messaging and FaceTiming, I think you'd be very surprised. It is not hard to manage at a distance. Now, that being said, it's not the easiest thing in the world. There's still a lot of steps you need to go through before you actually get to that point. So you do it right. You have to do it right, or you can't get burned or taken advantage of. But really, it's not, if you're using a property manager, most of your stuff's, how many times are you driving at the property? You're not, you're calling people and they're telling you what's going on.
I haven't been to Fresno since February of 2020. So what's that, 2.5 years?
Yeah. Because your property manager and your local people, your boots on the ground, they do that work for you. Well, it doesn't matter if that's 2 hours away or 2-day drive away, right? Once you have the systems in place, and that's the key, the systems in place, then you can do it pretty much from anywhere. So my advice would be, if you truly cannot make any deals work, don't buy a bad deal.
Never.
Wait, make crazy offers, as you said in a lot of your videos, or look at a different market if that's what it's come to.
Yeah. And again, I want people to hear, when I haven't been to Fresno in 2 years, we still flipped 18 homes or units, because one of them was a triplex and a duplex, and we still added 12 units to our inventory. So again, it's not like we didn't do anything. And oh, by the way, I wrote probably 500 offers. So we did a lot of stuff. It's just like you said, I have the system processes. There's a playlist on my channel called Walkthroughs. You see my team doing videos. They sent those to me, so I shared them with the world. I share everything I do. So what it takes work. It took, I don't know, it probably took me 5 or 7 years, the last 5 or 7 years, to build the systems and processes to now be able to flip 18 homes or whatever it was and add 12 units without going there. So it is possible.
So he continues his question. This guy had a lot of questions. Pat,
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for looking out for us. The final part of his question is, what is the best buy for your courses? He goes, I'm not a beginner, but I need structure and advice. You have a $99, $320, and $620 course.
Yeah.
Does the $620 course include the other two courses?
So it's, sometimes I'm a solopreneur or whatever you want to call this, whatever. If I was smart, I would probably do have a funnel or a funnel hack or whatever these things people talk about. It's not what I do. I create needs, and really I just document what I do. So let's talk about so I have 4, right? I actually have a free course on Teachable. It's kind of the intro, got some cool stories. It's where you can find the 52-year spreadsheet. I thought it was so valuable, I gave it away for free. It's a day of my life is in that spreadsheet, which I give away for free. So go get that. Know more about me. Second, the first thing I created is now the 319 course, because I write this book one rental at a time, and it's well received. It blows me away how many people buy it and how many messages I get, because my email is in the book like 5 times. Right? I guess authors don't normally do that, but I did that. And everybody's basically asking, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? So you only have to have that a dozen times before you try to figure it out. So I created my course, How to Get Started One Rental at a Time. It's everything Olivia and I did from day one. Since then, because I just want to give back, as I add more content, I don't charge you more money. If I add bonus content, you already bought it, great, you get it for free. Then I add a free Facebook group. Again, it's more, frankly, the Facebook group is more valuable than the $320. And then I buy Zoom. I spend an ungodly amount on Zoom, and I do these Saturday deep dives now because it's just fun to give back. So for me, the 319 is everything that is one rental at a time.
Right.
After I create that, some people hear my early story and they admit that they're not good with money. So eventually I have to break down and go rebuild what Olivia and I did for the first 5 years to get our money right. Hence the name, Get Your Money Right. It's very much a budgeting, understanding needs versus want, discretionary income, all of those things. How to turn your leftover money into time and just think different about money. It is very much standalone all by itself. Not everybody needs it. Based on this question, he's already got a couple units. You definitely don't need it.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last thing I did was the $650 course. I personally felt that I was already doing enough, right? I built this course. I do it a couple hours, 7 days a week. I thought I was already giving back enough. I resisted this course for well over 2 years. I was being asked one-on-one. I don't do it. I give you a couple hours in the morning and I'm out, right? However, enough people have made me feel like if I really want to impact people, I needed a mentoring option. So the 650 course is exactly the same course as 320. If I was a hacker, I would probably add more stuff. It's not my thing, a funnel hack. It's the exact same course with one thing extra. You get 30 minutes of my life. And if you know my story, my time's not cheap. So you spend $32 a minute or whatever it is to get some of my time. So again, I honestly hope almost no one, frankly, I'd be totally okay if nobody ever buys it. Lots of people do. Some people just want to thank me. Some people want to go through their scenario. I relented. I gave into market conditions. But again, it's not cheap. It's 30 minutes of my life I will never get back. But that's why that course is there. I do not want people to think the 650 course has some super secret extra stuff. I am not that guy. I'm not hiding stuff here to put it there. It is exactly the same course, except you get 30 minutes of my life. So hopefully that's clear.
Yeah. So my advice to this guy is I purchased the course a couple of years ago, went through the course, learned a lot from the course, made me a better investor. And then I got to the point where I was actually asked to provide content to the course myself. And I have, as well as a lot of the other bonus guys you got in there. If it was me giving this guy advice, like you said, $99 course, he doesn't need it. He already has his money right. He has 2 rentals. He's saved enough for number 3 and 4. He doesn't need the $99 course. And the 620 course, in my personal opinion, if you are just willing to get on the live streams, and if you buy the $320 course, you get the YouTube live stream and the Facebook live stream. What more? How much more of your time do you possibly need? Type your question in the live stream and sit there and listen to the answer. If you didn't get all the answer you need, guess what? There's always next week. So
Yeah,
my preferred is the 320.
No, I totally believe me. I hope people hear me. If people only buy the 320, if I could delete the 650, absolutely, I would in a heartbeat. I don't want to give up that 30 minutes. I've done enough. I feel like I've done enough.
Right.
But there are so many people that's like begging me. Hear my story. Hear my story. Hear my story. Answer my question. I'm like, okay, it's not going to be cheap.
Right.
I'm expensive.
The other alternative is you could create for yourself your own YouTube channel, get successful enough after buying the first course, and eventually get to a point where you can be me and ask questions for free whenever you want. But that's the only other alternative.
Well, and let's not forget the thing that I've just added that I'm so happy about is the deep dives. That's another thing that is only open to my students live, because I want to have control and don't have a troll asking stupid questions.
Right. Spamming
again, that's all available in the 320. I don't hide anything other than I want to guard 30 minutes of my life.
Okay. 2 more questions, then we're done. Mike Jones asks, do you believe the government won't do anything to help renters? We landlords have seen a huge increase nationwide accusations of evil money, grubbing, and heartless. And with assistance programs that just ended, gas prices are going higher, food prices increasing. He says, I see more government programs to help bridge the gap.
It's kind of a weird setup to that question. I think
copy and paste them, but sometimes people's grammar isn't the greatest on YouTube.
It seems like he came out and he was pissed off, and then he kind of closed with something I'm okay with. So I'll stick with the ending. Yeah, and I think President Biden has said it. I don't think you have to guess. I think I think he said this like 90 days ago. He wants to increase what I'll call Section 8. I think it's called something else at the federal level. Housing assistant, I think it's called. He wants to add more money to that. So it would not shock me. But again, folks, let me be very, 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 very clear. This is all inflationary. If you add more money on top and you don't increase supply, what do you get? Inflation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be shocked if the housing assistance or yet another version of programs is not created. I think that's a reasonable guess.
I think it's good too, because I think it's a terrible idea for the government to try to build housing and maintain housing, because all of history has told us that they're absolutely horrible, garbage at it, right? They will ruin it. However, if they put it on the capitalist individual to create a good product, bring it to the market, keep it in good condition, and then assist the consumer in purchasing it. If that is what's going to happen, I think that's going to be a much smoother transition. It's just expanding an existing program, which I know you do Section 8. I do Section 8. I love the Section 8 program. I'm not a bad landlord. What do I have to fear? You want to inspect my properties? That's great, but just I get paid on time.
Yeah, I think Section 8 is a wonderful program. I've said it, and I'll say it again. Every single one of my units is available for Section 8. It's just first come, first serve who meets my criteria. I do have a tenant box. I don't rent to dirt bags and this or that. But if you qualify, I don't care where the money comes from. I grew up in a very poor household, and Section 8 is awesome. So I every unit I have is available. And for those inspections, I love them. Why? Because my property manager is supposed to do their job, but I get to check the checker. I look at every Section 8 inspection is awesome. I'll gladly spend the $100 or whatever it costs to get the report. And then I get to yell at the property manager, like, why the hell you let my unit get like this? I pay you. What the hell? It's awesome.
Last question.
Okay.
Who inspires you and why?
Oh, that's a good question. And frankly, it's a good question because I'm about to hit a milestone birthday next Sunday, actually. And I'm really starting to think about that, right? I'm about to put the first 50 years of my life behind me. And I hope to live another 50.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm playing for a legacy that will live 50 past me. Right. So I got another 100 years I'm trying to impact. At least that's how it works in my mind. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. I actually thought about it for like a half hour this morning. So right now, it's kind of evolving, right? It is people who have come from nothing and are impacting millions of lives. One rental at a time has come from nothing. And, as of this morning, I think we might be at 33,500 subs. It could be so much more. It should be so much more. I have to keep going. Yeah. But, those are the people that, like, for example, Grant Cardone, let's talk about, so he's a very polarizing figure. I've had my moments with him where it's like, he's a total shyster. I hate his bigger is better, all of that stuff. I hate a lot of stuff that he says and does. I think it's flat out wrong. But when I stepped back this morning and really remembered his story, right? Drug addict, father passed away at 10, to now somebody who's got $1 billion and clearly is helping folks, at least at some level.
Right.
It's like, well, there's something there. Gary V is probably the one that I put on top, right? Gary V is an immigrant. He comes from, he does get a little bad rap of hustle porn, if you will. But for me, I think what he gets right is, it's something I've said a couple of times, and I think I need to say more. If you are happy at whatever you're doing, let's just say you work a 9 to 5 and you are legit happy. I want you to know, from me to you, you have already won. I believe most of us aren't happy and we don't know why. I can sit here to tell you right now that I don't know that I could tell you I'm as happy as I want to be. And money is not a problem for me. But still, I have this drive, right? There's a book I'm reading right now that's called Gap to Gain. It's kind of like, right? I'm an individual that has a target, like a 100-meter dash. And for me, it's always about the tape. I have to come to realize that you got to enjoy the journey. In fact, if I go back to my first book, one of my biggest mistakes, and I keep running into this stupid mistake, is I'm not enjoying the journey. I'm focused on the tape or the destination. So I think the guy that, that I'm gravitating to right now with this awesome surprise question is kind of Gary V. Yeah. And in others, I got a milestone birthday next Sunday. I've got to figure it out. And yeah, I don't have all the answers. I'm playing a game. I'm trying to be a little bit better every day. I'm legit trying to help. Yeah, so it's fun. I don't have it figured out yet.
Well, I think that's important. I think that even though we sometimes roast Grant occasionally,
yeah,
I'm actually a fan. And the Lumberjack Landlord and I had a deep dive discussion on Gary V versus Grant Cardone actually this morning. So kind of interesting that you happen to bring up both of those guys unprompted by me.
No,
it's interesting.
That's hilarious.
It's interesting to hear who people I look up to. So that was my question. And that was the last one for the video. So Mike, I don't got anything else for you. That's it.
So I still think it's amazing that you're willing to go through this every week for us. So thank you very much. Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about out-of-state real estate investing, how to get started, I'm in Mike's course. I also have my own YouTube channel. If you just go on Instagram, Google, YouTube, Millennial Mike, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.